I love that music. Welcome to your daily dose of salt and light with myself, Nadine Ness. It's a little bit different today because I'm doing a show in the evening. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how and even now just thinking about it, I'm already thinking about yawning. So I will try not to yawn. Oh, it's not a good start. It's really not a good start. And but I already see Jonathan is watching. I don't know if the usual crew will be on. It is a bit later, but I guess for David, it won't be that late because he's in BC. So, and I decided I'm going to try to make it a little bit shorter because an hour and a half, I think some people see that and then they don't end up watching it. So I figure if I make it a little bit shorter, then maybe more people will watch the show. So I'm going to try to aim for like 45 minutes, maybe shorter. I only have like 6 things on the screen. So, hey Heather, hey Kelly, Amanda and Jonathan. Amanda and Jonathan, I have a question. Do you guys like are you guys in 2 different household? I know you're husband and wife. Are you in 2 different houses, or are you guys watching both on your phone together? And would that not echo? I'm curious. I know Jonathan travels a lot because he always tells me where he is, but where are you this evening? So, yeah, I'm gonna cover a few things. So, President Trump has changed his tune publicly since Mark Carney was picked Prime Minister of Canada. And now that we're in an election, he's not really talking about Canada very much. However, there was a reporter in the White House that asked a question, and she is Canadian. So the press secretary, Caroline Levitt, I think that's her name, asked her who she was with. So I'm going to play 2 different videos. One of them shows the reporter. So I'm going to play that one, but it's much shorter. So then I'm going to switch over to a different video, so that we can kind of get the grand scheme of the whole video. Is that the word? I don't know. I don't know. It's late. So here's the beginning part. And when she starts answering, I'm going to switch to the other video.
If I may. President Trump's tone when it comes to Canada-U.S. relations, Canadians have noticed it's shifted a bit in the past few weeks. Ever since the election campaign started, he stopped talking about Canada becoming the 51st state, at least publicly. I'm wondering if that's on purpose and why.
I would reject the president's position on Canada has shifted. Perhaps he just hasn't been asked about Canada by questions from this group in the Oval Office, but they see him almost every day. But the president still maintains his position on Canada. The United States has been subsidizing Canada's national defense, and he believes that Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. As for autos,
if I may.
Okay, so in one video, she asks the reporter where she's from, but I didn't see it in that one. Let's go to the other one.
Office, President Trump suggested that
Okay, there might be a bit of repeat.
there could be some help for automakers. I'm wondering what that looks like. Is it tariff relief on the 25%
Oh, it's a separate
tariffs that are in place
question.
right
Here.
sure.
on tariffs? Yesterday in the Oval Office.
Which outlet are you with?
The Canadian Public Broadcaster.
Oh, nice to see you.
Thank you. Yesterday in the Oval Office, President Trump suggested that there could be some help for automakers. I'm wondering what that looks like. Is it tariff relief on the 25% tariffs that are in place right now, or the new tariffs that are coming up in May on auto parts? And a second on Canada, if I may. President Trump's tone when it comes to Canada-U.S. relations, Canadians have noticed it's shifted a bit in the past few weeks. Ever since the election campaign started, he stopped talking about Canada becoming the 51st state, at least publicly. I'm wondering if that's on purpose and why.
I would reject the president's position on Canada has shifted. Perhaps he just hasn't been asked about Canada by questions from this group in the Oval Office, but they see him almost every day. But the president still maintains his position on Canada. The United States has been subsidizing Canada's national defense, and he believes that Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. As for autos and auto parts, I don't have anything to read out for you there, but I think the point the president was making is flexibility, and he has flexibility when it comes to negotiations and talks. But ultimately, his goal in his fair trade deals that he is pursuing with many countries around the world is to put the American worker first. And we had automakers and auto workers here at the White House on Liberation Day who believe in this president and his negotiating ability to put them first and to bring those jobs back to the United States of America. And the president's been very clear about that in his conversations with the automakers as well.
So it's interesting. She said the Canadian broadcast. What did she say? Canadian public broadcast. CPB? Or was it the CBC and she just didn't use that term? I don't know. I'm going to say hi to a few people. Heather Wayne is on, Michelle Curry is on, and Elizabeth Barra says, "Hi Nadine, finally catching you live. Usually I do live during the day, but I explained it to the regulars that were on Monday because now I was doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I don't have childcare for the next 5 to 6 weeks. So I can only go live in the evenings when my husband's home because it's very difficult with a 2.5-year-old. I could go live when he's napping. It's just, but then I'm not watching him. And even though he naps in the living room, I would hear him if he wakes up. It's not always at the same time, so my show wouldn't be able to always be at the same time, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. So we've decided, I've kind of talked to my husband and say, hey, do I just pause it for 6 weeks or do I keep going? He's like, well, why don't you just do 2 nights a week? Like we'll do Tuesday, Thursday in the evening. I will do the show and then he can watch the kids. So he's manning the children. Elizabeth is watching from Colorado. Oh, wow. I'm trying to remember, Elizabeth. Are you one of the ones that heard about my show from when I was on Mark Mitchell's Rasmussen? I never know if I'm saying it right. Rasmussen report? I'm curious. Okay. That's what I thought, but I wasn't 100% sure. Yeah, so it's interesting to see that Canadian reporters are allowed in the White House. It makes me want to fly to to DC and see if they'll allow me to come report and ask a question in the White House. Maybe. I thought it was just Americans. So it's quite interesting. But her question's interesting too. So it was a two-part. It talked about the auto industry and it also talked about kind of Trump being more quiet. But what was it? Another thing too to keep in mind, and I'm going to show Warren Kinsella's post here. He says that's the video I shared with you guys. He says, and with that, I do believe the Trump regime just guaranteed the election for Mark Carney. So it's not a surprise that Mark Carney has been pushing this whole tariff and fight, I guess, so to speak, with the US. Canada is one of the only 2 countries that have put retaliatory tariffs on the US versus all of the other ones are negotiating terms. They've removed some of their tariffs so that it matches the US, or so basically the US removes it on them. So Canada is one of 2 countries, the only other country that's retaliating with the US on their Liberation Day, or basically matching the tariffs of other country. The only other one is China. So way to go, Canada. And the worst thing is there was no new tariffs announced on Liberation Day with Canada. So it clearly shows that Mark Carney is trying to use this issue to divide Canadians, and it's worked. Like, Canadians are so brainwashed that they're looking at Mark Carney and thinking he's a viable option to negotiate Canada with Trump. I find this kind of shocking. And I've been talking about this with my husband. I just don't understand it. I don't understand how he's gaining so much momentum in Canada, especially with how extreme he is. There's so many people that were saying, oh, but he's better than Trudeau. No, he's actually worse than Trudeau. He's more extreme than Trudeau. He has more extreme views, want to do more extreme things with Canada than Trudeau. And the worst thing is, what makes it even more worse is not only he's more extreme with this leftist ideology, he's actually really strategic and smart, which means he's probably going to get away with it. He's going to find ways to do it. But I also want to add the fact that it's still the same Liberal Party. It's not like they have a whole new slate of candidates that are replacing all of the old ones that have destroyed this country over the last year or over the last 10 years. It's the same cabinet. It's the same people in cabinet. It's the same people running to become MPs. So I just find it shocking that people aren't seeing through it. But at the same time, I understand a little bit because the majority of Canadians aren't very politically informed. What I mean by that is they don't know about everything that's going on in politics the way like me, my husband, and a lot of the people who are involved either within the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party. The majority of Canadians just don't know what goes on. They might see a news article here and there, they might watch the debate, but for general rule, people who watch my show are probably a little bit more informed than the general middle ground voters, but the ground voters are kind of clueless. And I can say that because I used to be one of them. I used to be one of those that just watched the media here and there, believed everything they said, and was completely brainwashed. I used to hate Trump, absolutely hate him. I had full-blown TDS syndrome, Trump derangement syndrome. I've said it in the past. I've talked about this in the past. I used to hate Harper. I thought he was cold-hearted. And it's funny because I was at a conference last week, and we'll talk about that too in a little bit about Buttongate. But I was at a conference, and a whole bunch of conservatives, we were having dinner and having a conversation, and they said, so what, like, I don't understand how Harper lost, like what was it? And I don't know if you guys remember, at the time there was a big story that went wild, and there was a Syrian refugee, a family that had drowned, and there was this photo of this 2-year-old that was washed up on shore dead. He had drowned. And And they asked, like, how did people tie that to Harper? Because it had nothing to do with Harper. And I said, I'll tell you what my thoughts were at the time. At the time, my thoughts were Harper is cold, heartless. This is how media painted him for years. And that's what I thought he was. Cold, heartless, doesn't really care about anyone or anything. And his policies with refusing to take in Syrian refugees or refusing to care about any other people in any other country caused this. Like this is kind of like subconsciously this was the mindset that I had. And I'm telling you guys this, maybe you were never there. Maybe you didn't have these kinds of mindset. I'm telling you this so you understand the general voter so that maybe we can influence a little bit of change and waking them up to the reality the same way I was woken up to the reality. But at the time that's what I thought, and they said I never really saw it that way. I said, "Yeah, because you weren't brainwashed by the media. You didn't think Harper was cold and hard. I did. I did. And I thought he was a horrible prime minister." And it's funny because now looking back, I see how good of a prime minister he was, how good he was on the economy, how good he was on controlled immigration, which right now we're seeing the results of uncontrolled immigration and how much it's hurt our country. And I will also say we don't have a problem of illegal immigration. We have controlled immigration, like not control. We have legal immigration. However, they've just opened the floodgate for legal immigration. So we have way more coming into the country than we should, and they're not being vetted properly, even though they're not necessarily coming in as illegal immigrant. We're having a bigger problem in itself. But sorry, I got distracted. There was something beeping and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I was afraid my dogs have like a Wi-Fi collar so that they don't run away. And I thought maybe that's what it was, but no, it's the dishwasher. So and it keeps beeping. I hope it's gonna stop soon. So, and then you can probably hear the dogs barking outside. I hope it's not a porcupine. But yeah, the majority of Canadians just don't know how insane Mark Carney is. And they're just being brainwashed by the next thing, the elbows up, the Trump and the USA is bad. We can't travel. Like, people have asked me, is it safe to travel to the US? I'm like, are you listening to yourself right now? But that's the propaganda that they're pushing. That if Canadians go to Canada, they're gonna be
Sure.
on a
On
plane.
tariffs,
Sorry, I
yesterday
didn't
in the Oval
realize I didn't mean to push play. They're gonna be put on a plane to El Salvador. Like, the fact that there's people who believe this, I find this so ridiculous. Okay, so speaking of how insane Mark Carney is, I have another video here. Kim says, if we became a state, it would be fantastic. Canadians forget they only get the news that Trudeau allows. True. Suzanne Grant says, I think it's the same cabinet because they have had time to make all the legal changes or wrangle around so as to take away all our rights within 30 days. Danielle and Scott need to be quicker. I agree. This is where we're going to come in. We're going to try to put pressure on them. Here, let's watch this Jordan Peterson.
The Liberals also,
Oh, that's so
being
loud.
relatively instrumental in CARNEY, decided that they would install a new leader, coronate him, and now we have a prime minister who's only been selected by about 130,000 Canadians. And the real issue here is, Pierce, I think that older Canadians who are likely to prefer Carney believe that he's a return to the stability, let's say, of the period between, well, even the post-war period, but particularly between 1990 and 2010. You know, Carney's a banker. Canadians think he's pro-free market. They think that he's pro-industry. They think that he's a genuine, old-style, stable, conservative, liberal type. And he looks the part, and he plays that,
True,
and
he
that's
looks
how
the
he
part.
puts himself forward. But the problem with that, sir, is that Carney is seriously bad news. Despite his international cachet and his lengthy CV and his term as Bank of England governor, that's all impressed Canadians and made them believe on the face of his CV that he's a competent person. But a little bit of investigation into what he believes and the scope of the oncoming disaster makes itself clear. I mean, Carney believes that 75% of the world's fossil fuels have to remain in the ground. He believes that every single financial decision that every individual makes and every company should prioritize decarbonization over every other consideration, right? He was UN climate envoy, and he started a consortium of businesses that agreed really to be under the aegis of central planning because he believes the climate apocalypse narrative. And my sense is that that entire narrative, and I mean entire, is nothing but the use of provocative and ill-founded fear to exercise a level of control over people that, well, we'll find unimaginable if it ever manages to manifest itself.
I was trying to fix my mic because I kept hitting it and I ended up bringing it too low. I just want to replay that. I got distracted because I heard that not everyone could comment on Facebook because it's not set to public. So I went and switched it. So hopefully, even if people aren't my friends, you can see it. Also, I never say this, so I'm going to say it this time. Like, subscribe, and share, retweet, whatever. Share the videos so that other people can hear about what's happening in Canada and potentially the US and around the world, because I'm going to be talking about El Salvador's president. But I just want to go back and replay this part just quickly.
Consortium of businesses that agreed really to be under the aegis of central planning because he believes the climate apocalypse narrative. And
so what Jordan Peterson is talking about is the ESG agenda. So just so people understand, I'm gonna kind of dumb it down. But when Mark Carney was a part of the Bank of England, Bank of Canada, even with the World Economic Forum, he pushed the ESG. So, what does ESG stand for? I'm just gonna bring it up here. ESG. Sustainable. Okay, stands for environmental, social, and governance. It's a framework used to assess a company's sustainability and ethical impact, focused on how they manage their environmental impact, social responsibility, and corporate governance. So, just so you understand, Mark Carney was behind this huge push for every big entity that wants loans or wants investments or just wants to thrive. They had to put this ESG into how they govern, how they run their country. And they would get these scores, and all of the big trading companies would look at those scores and decide which one they're going to put into. So basically, Mark Carney was behind pushing that into all industry all over the US, all over the world. And like this is based on his ideology. Like, we had gone through his LinkedIn profile. Let's bring it up. Might as well. We had gone through in an episode, this would have been like a month ago, on his LinkedIn profile. Mark Carney. And just so you know, a lot of companies have since pushed back from DEI. So ESG includes DEI. So you have to meet a certain quota of females, a certain quota of visible minorities, so a certain quota of LGBTQ. So if you've heard the term DEI, diversity, inclusion, um, diversity, oh, what's it stand for? DEI. Diversity, equity, inclusion. Yeah, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, I'm just looking. I'm just bringing it up. Let's see. How do I do this on here? Let's see if it lets me share it. Or might as well go through it because a lot of people weren't watching that episode. I just want you guys to understand like how extreme this guy is. There you go. Ah, gosh darn it. Why is it doing that? It won't do it. Okay, let's try again. It's trying to kind of. Okay, here you go. Okay. He's a board member of Stripe. It said he stopped being a board member in January 2025. That turns out not to be true. Oh, you guys can't see it. There you go. Oh, why is it doing this? I really, really dislike Microsoft products. Here, I'm going to see if I can move it that way. There you go. Ah, okay. Now we got it. Mark Carney. Yeah, he said he quit the board of Stripe, but I don't know if you guys saw, but the documents were submitted and it turns out he's still a board member of Stripe, so they didn't remove him as the board. He was chair and head of transition investing with Brookfield Asset Management. I don't know if you've been hearing, there's a lot of really shady stuff that's happening with Brookfield. They're using tax havens in, was it Bermuda? In Bermuda? There's so much. The scandal over Brookfield. He moved the office to New York when it was a Canadian office, moved to New York, and he said, oh, he wasn't a part of that decision yet. He was. So there was so much lies on this. He's he's a UN, or he was the UN Special Envoy on Climate Action and Finance. Let's see what else. He's a board member for the World Economic Forum. So if you don't know much about the World Economic Forum, it's a far left organization that kind of tries to take over the entire world. Klaus Schwab, who was the head of it at the time, I think he's just stepped down recently, but he was the head of it. He bragged about how he had like several ministers and government officials in Canada, basically that he was controlling. But it's funny, there's no all of the I don't know if you guys remember when we went through it, all of these position had a bunch of description as to what he did. They removed some of it. Trying to hide how insanely extreme he is. Okay, let's see what else I've got here.
My sense is that that entire narrative.
Whoops, sorry. I press play. I got to meet Jordan Peterson a couple weeks ago. He was in Regina, and I ended up getting VIP access in the back. So we got to chat, and he recognized me. So that was kind of awesome. He's like, how's your Twitter going? I'm like, oh, I'm doing so much more than just Twitter now, but my Twitter's going good. Okay. Cat Canada made this post. If you don't follow Cat Canada, I highly recommend you do. She says, so Carney just admitted the carbon tax you've been paying did not do much. Hey, remember when Libs said if you take your family on a road trip in a minivan, there would be global boiling? Were Libs lying then, or are they lying now? Let's play this video. I will admit though, I don't have as hard of a time listening to Mark Carney as I did Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau is like nails on a chalkboard. Although Mark Carney says a lot of it's not as hard to listen to as it was Justin Trudeau.
If you look at the emissions reductions that come from the consumer carbon tax alone, it's about 6%, six, of the overall emissions reduction. So it's something, but it's not very much. And so the vast majority of emission reduction work is being done by the large emitters, the large polluters. And what we've done there is tightening the carbon market, creating a new system where they are paying for emission reductions of households, so a positive incentive there, reinforcing investment tax credit and other element approaches to drive that clean energy investment. Remember, 80% of final emission reduction comes from final demand for energy, so it matters what happens in the energy system. We're driving that. Last point, we're looking to double the home building, but we're looking to double home building in a way that those new homes are emitting 20% less in the construction of those homes, and that those new homes are much more climate efficient when they're built. So you can say that's not a climate plan because it's a home building plan. It's a plan for affordability. Both of those things are true. It's a plan that's targeted at younger Canadians, but it's a plan that's building an entire Canadian industry that is far more. If you look at the emissions reduction.
Jonathan said, Trudeau's infuriating. Carney's just boring. Yeah, I just want to fall asleep, but I don't know if it's because I'm really tired or because he's boring. Probably both. David, you're on. Hi, David. And I'm going to start like showing your comments here on the screen. David says hi to all. Heather says hi to David. So it's weird because usually we all watch during the day and now we're watching in the evening. I don't know if I prefer the evenings. I think I prefer the daytime. But this is another extreme thing by Mark Carney. Let's Max Power says Mark Carney wants to solve housing by building more modular homes made in China. Turns out he's invested in modular homes made in China. What a shocker. I heard that. I heard that Brookfield was kind of had some projects of building homes already in Canada. Guess who's probably going to get those contracts? There's so much I wanted to cover too with the China stuff, but I haven't done a deep dive yet on the whole the two whistleblowers, the RCMP, the current RCMP, and the former RCMP that did a letter. I want to do a deep dive into that letter and read it all, and then I'm going to talk about it on the show.
But shouldn't we be flying less now?
We should be taking into account the impact of our flying on the planet now. And that's
pushing up the tax on flying.
You push up the tax on flying, you push up the cost on transport, and that's in part what putting a price on carbon is.
But shouldn't we be flying less?
Remember when they were saying you shouldn't be going on family trips? Sorry, is frig a bad word? I don't know if it is. I'm feeling a lot of emotions this week. I'm just shaking my head at Canadians. I still can't believe that the Liberals are polling as high as they are polling. And the most shocking thing for me this week, I saw a post on Facebook by one of my former friends. And we just haven't talked in a long time. But anyways, I saw a post, and he's a Christian that used to go to the same church I go to. And I saw a post that he was at a Mark Carney rally, and he's a Christian, like a strong Christian. And I'm like, in Saskatchewan, I'm like, what are you doing? I was like shocked. And my husband is like, Nadine, that shouldn't shock you. But anyways, so I just shake my head how so many people are so like brainwashed. They don't see through this. Like, this is the same party that's trying to remove charitable status from Christian organization. Like, they've already succeeded in some aspect. Now they're looking into removing the charitable status from Christian churches. So, but yet you have these Christians who are going at a, like, it didn't just say, oh, I'm going to vote Mark Carney. Like, he was at a rally, a Mark Carney rally in Saskatoon or whatever, Saskatchewan, wherever it was. I'm like, how can this be? Anyways, I have another video to share here.
Tools exist.
It was playing, but it was silent. It's a new policy being announced by Pierre Poilievre on scammers scamming the elderly.
Tools exist. That's why today I am announcing our plan to stop scammers who target Canadian seniors. We're going to pass the Stop Scamming Seniors Act, a common sense law that forces banks and telecom companies to deploy state-of-the-art technology to catch scams and stop them before they happen, not after, when it is too late. This plan has a number of key steps. 1, we will mandate real-time scam detection systems by banks and telecoms, starting with seniors' accounts. 2, we will require automatic flagging and blocking of suspicious activity like unusual transactions or robocall traffic. 3, we will create the Seniors Transaction Shielding Protocol, a 24-hour hold on a high-risk transaction for seniors or anyone else who requests this extra protection with mandatory verification before money leaves their accounts. 4, we will impose public reporting requirements so Canadians know how many scams are being blocked or missed. 5, we will impose mandatory jail time of 1 year for $5,000 of fraud, 3 years for a fraud of over $100,000, 5 years for fraud over $1 million, and minimum fines that are 10 times the size of the frauds committed. You steal 50 grand, you'll pay 500 grand on top of your jail sentence. We want to financially cripple the fraudsters to deter their greed. 6, we will introduce tough penalties with up to $5 million per violation for companies that fail to deploy the latest technology to stop scams. 7, we will create a new criminal code offense, willful blind profiteering from fraud, holding executives criminally responsible if they knowingly let scams go unchecked. Our seniors deserve to feel safe and secure when they pick up their phones, iPads, or computers.
I made it go a bit faster. There's a few comments that I'm going to address here. Susan said, how do we stop the banks and telecom companies from scamming us? Good question. I don't know. Max Power says, great question. David says Megan Murphy, a PPC candidate, had her bank account frozen. I heard about that. I guess it occurred right when she got her papers or approval as a candidate. Susan says Carney is maniacal. What does that mean? I think it's good policy. I think what Pierre is doing here is probably in the war room, they were probably thinking, how do we get some of the seniors, the boomers that are being polled to vote so much more for Carney? How do we get them to want to vote for Polyev? I think that's part of why, like, some of the biggest things that affects a lot of seniors is the fraudulent, the scams that they get victim of, and it happens a lot more than we think. So I think that might be why they put through this policy forward. I think it's a good policy. I'd like to see the kinks though, because it almost seems like there was a little bit of controlling over the banks, and with all of the freezing of bank accounts and stuff. I always get like a little bit hesitant when I hear, but it's not like it's permanent. I think it's just like a temporary hold to stop scams from occurring. Okay, now the next thing I want to talk about is
We're big in protecting.
Bukele. Bukele. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Is it Bukele? 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 What's his first name? I forgot. Nayib. Nayib? Bukele? I don't know. Anyways, I'm going to share this tweet. He I thought this was so funny. So the White House says, "I love the people of El Salvador, and they have I'm so sorry. One hell of a president." That's what President Donald J. Trump said about Bukele. But let's see if
Job you're doing.
yeah, let's play the video. We'll play the video big, and then I'll share another video of what Nayib said that I really
Mr.
like.
President, it's an honor to have you. Doing incredibly for your country, and we appreciate working with you because you want to stop crime, and so do we. I want to thank you for the great job you're doing. I'm really happy to be here, honored, and eager to help. We're a small country, but if we can help, we're good. We just have had a great relationship, and then I wanted to say hello to the people of El Salvador and say they have one hell of a president.
I'm gonna see what there was another video. There's a few video, but I thought this one was cool, so I'll play this one too.
We're big in protecting women.
Good. That's right. It's a very important form of protection too.
And as you can see, most of my cabinet are women, so.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's why you're
And
running.
they're not DEI hires or anything.
They
They're
can
just
be
great
good.
at what they do. Right?
That's right. This is very impressive.
We're big in protecting.
So he says most of our cabinets are women, and it's not DEI hire either. They're really great at what they do. I love that he gave them, because I don't know if you guys remember when Trudeau had announced the 50-50 cabinet, and when they were 50% women cabinet back in 2015, and when they asked him, why did you do it? He says, because it's 2015. But the representation of women in government wasn't 50%. So he was pushing, because we want half and half of women. To me, I don't want the people to be in the cabinet or half and half because they have lady parts. I want them to be the most qualified people for the job. And I love that Bukele, I don't know if I'm saying it properly, but I love that he said that. It's not because they're DEI hires, it's because they're the best ones for the job. Because I find sometimes, often, when, especially as a woman, and I don't want to go into an industry or going into a job for people to look at me and see, oh, she got the job because she's a woman. I want them to look at me because I'm qualified for the position. So I like that he addressed that. But there is something else I want to share, another video of him. This one here. Let's make it bigger. Here.
And we're very eager to help. We know that you have a crime problem, a terrorism problem that you need help with. And we're a small country, but if we can help, we will do it. And we actually turned the murder capital of the world, that was the journalists call it, right? Murder capital of the world, into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And, you know, if sometimes they say that we imprison thousands. I like to say that we actually liberated millions. So, you know, like,
It's very good. Who gave him that line? Do you think I can use that?
Yes.
And in fact, Mr. President, you have 350 million people to liberate. But to liberate 350 million people, you have to imprison some. You know, that's the way it works, right? You cannot just, you know, free the criminals and think crime is going to go down magically. You have to imprison them so you can liberate 350 million Americans that are asking for the end of crime and the end of terrorism. And it can be done. I mean, you're doing it already. And I'm sure that people have seen the change in the streets. A long way to go because you're just initiating your second term. But it's clear that, you know, with the numbers at the border, you know, when even in Democrat-run cities, they get a help from the work you're doing. So I'm really happy to be here, honored, and eager to help.
I'm just looking what the El Salvador population is. But that line, he says, you got to imprison some to liberate the many. And like we look at like Canada, are we really free if we're not even feeling safe in our own home, or if we're not even feeling safe to go out to the city? Like I'll just give a small glimpse. I live near Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. It's one of the highest crime rate cities in Canada. And even I have noticed in the last probably 5 years, maybe a little bit longer, but probably 5 years, I went to Midtown Mall. This would have been like a few weeks ago. And I went a second time and it was the same thing. And I witnessed 3 shoplifting incident with the police chasing them with yelling. I was followed by some guy who thought he knew me. He kept calling me some other name and following me. I'm like, I'm not her. I don't know who you think I am, but that's not me. Like, stop following me. And you could tell he was really high on drugs. It's gotten so bad at Midtown Mall. I don't think I would feel safe enough to bring my children there. There's just so many people that are high on drugs, that are drunk and just like shoplifting. It's just awful. And it didn't used to be like that. You used to go to Midtown Mall and it was like a nice mall. It was where all the nice shops are. And now, oh really? Michelle says that mall was scary 10 years ago. I never experienced that 10 years ago. I have now, but like I was talking to some of the shop owners there, like the lady that works at Le Chateau, and she says, yeah, it's gotten so bad. Like 2, 3, 4 times a day, they have shoplifters that they have to try to get their stuff back from. But it's really bad now. Michelle, have you gone recently? Like, I refuse to go. I'll go to, like, Lawson Mall. That one's really nice. You don't have that issue at Lawson Mall. Probably one of the better ones, I think. There's maybe because it's so far from downtown, but I think there's issues to, like, the 8th Street one. But, yeah, I just don't think that, like, Saskatoon's so much more dangerous than it used to be. David says, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I have to scroll back. Max Power says, Nobody wants to take their kids' families to public spaces like parks or libraries anymore because it's swarming with addicts and homeless encampments. Yeah. In Saskatoon, the public library just recently shut down for a few weeks because they had so many overdose occur at the library. I don't take my kids to the public library. I went to one. This would have been like a year ago. What was it that I was there for? I think I was looking like for some like specific books because I was reading a series and the only one they had it was at that one, the one downtown. And yeah, I vowed to never go there again. But like that's just how bad things have gotten. I missed a joke here. Susan says El Salvador has done a great job with their crime in prison. Every prisoner has a job. Max Power said a joke. If you overcook and undercook meat, also jail. Are you talking about El Salvador? Max says if you charge too high a price for sweaters, they sent you straight to jail. I don't think it's that bad. Are we talking about El Salvador? Oh my gosh, there's so many comments I missed. Susan says the government's going after Chris and Tamara for 2 years jail. I haven't heard of the sentencing yet being released. Yeah, they won't go after, Max says they won't go after actual violent criminals who are continually released to reoffend again and again. They go after thought criminals. It's so true. I hope that Tamara and Chris appeal their verdict because I don't believe there was the evidence to convict them. Oh, Max Power said it was joking. It was a joke from the show Parks and Recreation. My husband used to watch that show. He talks about it all the time. Okay. Well, there's so much comments. Caval Valm says 40 years ago while I was there, a little girl was stolen. They locked them all, and by touching all kids' hair, they were able to stop the abduction. What do you mean by touching all kids' hair? How were they able to stop it? By touching all kids. Sorry, I'm laughing. That's such a like sad story, but I don't know how touching kids' hair would have determined if it was the girl that was stolen. Our daughter was a paramedic in Saskatoon, Michelle Curry says. She hasn't been in a while. She lives 2.5 hours south. Okay. Liberate the population. I think we need to liberate the 42 million or whatever, how many million we have right now. We need to liberate them by going tough on crime. Just so you guys know, I don't know if you watched Nayib Bukele's interview on Tucker Carlson. This was like way back when, where he was talking about how he did what he did in El Salvador. El Salvador was extremely corrupt. The gangs and the drug cartel ran the country. It was the murder capital of the world. Like the crime was insane. It was extremely unsafe. And when he got elected, he went like tough on crime. But there was something where the court system blocked him, and in order for him to be able to override the court, as in get new court people um, put into government, he needed like 90% or something ridiculously high. And look, I'm paraphrasing. I'm just going based on memory. I might not be super accurate with those data. I'm going to see if I can find a video that kind of explains it, and I'll bring it on the show. But then, so he had to get like a crazy ridiculous amount of votes to be able to take care of the court system that was blocking what he was trying to do in El Salvador, and he got it. Like, he's the most liked president in El Salvador's history. And at the time, he was the most popular president by the people, voted by the people, most popular than any other country in the world. So, so it was really interesting to see what he did in such a short period of time. And then when he got like the courts, and he's like went all out war on the drug, on the thing, and he arrested all of these murderers, all these drug people all over El Salvador. And they asked him, and he did it with his team, like police officers and the army and stuff. And they asked him, how did you do it? Because the casualty in that war on crime was so little, and he gave glory to God. I'll see if I can find the video. It was like a longer episode, but maybe I can find like the small clips of it. But I was just like really impressed by his leadership style. Look, I don't think any leader are perfect by any means, but I remember listening to his story and how he really turned around El Salvador, and it really has turned around. It's one of the safest countries now in the Western Hemisphere. So it's actually somewhere that Jonathan and I have considered going on like a vacation instead of going to Mexico or and I listened to Mario, what's his name here? I'm going to see if I can bring it up. He's on Twitter. I think he's from El Salvador. Was it El Salvador? We were talking. I was just looking at his profile. Mario Zelaya. I think it was to El Salvador he was originally from. He says, I donate millions to the CR. We're doing our income tax right now. And oh, anyways. David says he read a story that Kristi Noem has announced something called Real ID, stating that all Americans starting May 15 will have to provide this. Provide this for what? Like just when they're stopped? Aaron says, Chris Barber says they want to crush Big Red or sell it in auction. I wonder if he can sell it to someone else now so they can't touch it. Oh, okay. So Keval, I think it's Keval, says her hair was cut and dyed. What? So apparently the kid that they abducted at the mall, her hair was cut and dyed at the mall. That's why they were touching the hair. And it was fresh dye. Oh, interesting. I've never heard of this story. Okay, for air travel. Yeah, that's insane that they didn't require it before. I heard about that. A lot of refugees didn't have ID, so they could fly just with a paper. So I'm glad that they're implementing that. Susan Grant says El Salvador just up the road from Costa Rica. I have some friends who go to Costa Rica for the winter. I wish that was me. But anyways, I was planning on keeping this short. I'm not even in an hour, which is good. So I guess I did keep this short. I will be so we kind of decided we're going to do Tuesdays and Thursday night. I say we because it's a partnered thing with my husband because he's manning the kids. And usually it's both of us manning the kids in the evening. So yeah, so Tuesdays and Thursday evenings is when I'll do the show. I'll try to keep it under an hour. And yeah, I wanted to say too, I went bike riding today. so I can barely move. I'll be very sore tomorrow. I have a e-bike. I bought it like from Walmart when they had this crazy sale, so it was like super cheap. So I bring the kids in a trailer. So I had the 2 kids in like this trailer. They were squeezed in there like sardines, but they were being champs. Anyways, I took them biking and we went from, if you know Saskatoon, we went from, I parked at the park that's across from like the river landing. So across the street, went all the way to the bridge. I guess that would be like Circle Drive. We crossed it, came all the way back, went all the way to like Lenore. So at the way other end of town. Then we came back, crossed at Walmart, and went back to the park where we started. So we were biking for 2.5 hours. However, I have an e-bike to help me haul the trailer, because if you're biking with the trailer, it's really hard to haul, especially when you have 2 kids in there. So the e-bike kind of helps me. So it's still a little bit of work, but the e-bike stopped working like 3/4 of the way through. At one point, it was so steep. We went the wrong way because the under the bridge was shut down. And it was so steep. I had to get James to get out of the trailer to help me push the bike up because it was like this steep because we were going to go underneath. Anyways, and it was shut down because of construction. So yeah, my bum hurts from sitting on the pedal bike and biking, and my legs are going to be sore tomorrow. So we won't be going biking tomorrow, but maybe later on this week. I'm just reading some of the comments. David says this is the slippery slope to digital ID CBDC, presented as something good but can be nefarious. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it'll be digital ID because Trump's kind of pushed back on that publicly, and Kristi Noem is kind of does everything Trump wants her to do. So, but I do agree there should be some form of ID to fly, because how do you know you're not sitting next to a terrorist who wants to take over the plane? Max Power says, bike riding is the best. My favorite part of summer. I know. The only thing is, so I love it in the spring when the silver willow is blooming and it just smells wonderful. Elizabeth says, Barra says, Real ID has been around Colorado since 2012. It proves you're a citizen on your driver's license, since some states will give driver's license to non-citizen. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Anyways, I'm going to let you guys go. I didn't talk much about Ottawa, but I guess I did a little bit on Monday. But I'll be back on Thursday, probably closer to 8. I was a little bit later. I didn't kind of plan. Do you want to come say hi, James? No? Okay. He's waving at me in the window, probably seeing if I was done the show. But David, I'm glad you were able to join us, even if it was a little bit later. But yeah, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, share, do all of the things. And I will see you guys on Thursday evening.